Spider-Man is a character who has existed since 1962, created by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, maybe, but I don't really want to get sued right now. The character has been popularized thanks to adaptation after adaptation, but there's one that has escaped the public eye and faded into relative obscurity since 1977.
Whoa! He stole that guy's pizza!
That adaptation is CBS's The Amazing Spider-Man, starring The Sound of Music's Nicholas Hammond. The show ran for 2 years and received 2 seasons. In this video, I'm going to be going over arguably the best episode, looking into what could have been, and even making an action figure of the TV show's version of the wall crawler.
Vault award is the dream of every scientist.
What you're about to see will make traditional cloning obsolete. We're like Jekyll and Hyde.
Doctor, after seeing you clone that frog, I was wondering, do you think it'll ever be possible to clone a man?
Spider-Man, Peter Parker.
The episode opens with Peter at the Bugle. He's being tasked with photographing renowned scientist Dr. Moon as a science committee is in town judging his cloning experiments. Meanwhile, 2 committee members are caught in an elevator crash perpetrated by none other than Dr. Moon. However, he somehow appears in time to conduct the experiment, cloning a frog into another one. This is also how Spider-Man villain the Jackal discovered the ability to clone an organism. Peter arrives to the scene of the elevator crash after the experiment is conducted. But common authority figure in this series, Police Captain Barbera, exposes his film and ruins the shots. Peter receives a vision-like tingle from his spider sense and suits up as Spider-Man, discovering the bomb used in the crash before the police notice him and pursue.
Spider-Man! Come on down here! That's Spider-Man up there. Go get him!
Back at the Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson chews Peter out for not getting shots of the elevator crash, and tasks Peter with appearing at the committee costume ball later in the night. Peter attempts to book a costume for the event, but is unsuccessful, until he goes to Aunt May's house and asks her to help him make one, because sewing together multiple Spider-Man costumes means he can't make his own, I guess. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Dr. Moon successfully cloned himself, and this evil doppelganger is the one responsible for the elevator crash. He wanted revenge over the committee passing him over year after year. This split personality revenge arc would also be used for the Green Goblin in 2002's Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi.
You killed them. We killed them.
The evil Dr. Moon successfully incapacitates the regular counterpart and assumes his identity. His plan for revenge must continue. Peter accidentally runs into the evil Dr. Moon in the hotel lobby, where Peter's spider sense is somehow able to identify him as the one responsible for the elevator crash. Peter visits Miss Benson, a woman who was with the 2 men before the crash, is related to the chairman of the board, and has a strange past relationship with Dr. Moon, who then calls her after she kicks Peter out.
Miss Benson, I know this may sound a little bizarre, but just suppose that somebody was out to get the whole committee, and this accident was just the first step.
That's a terrible thing for you to say.
The committee was the only possible connection between these two men.
Both these men have been on the committee for 5 years. This is longer than anyone except my grandfather. Now, if being on the committee would lead to this, then... No, you cannot be right. One moment, please. Would you excuse me, please?
I'll only take up another moment of your time.
Goodbye, Mr. Parker.
Goodbye, miss.
Hello? Dr. Moon?
Dr. Moon tells her to leave the security detail and meet him at an abandoned building around the corner of the hotel. Weirdly, she goes through with this and follows his orders, even though if my friends told me to leave behind my only form of safety and meet them at a sketchy location, I would think twice. No matter, because Spider-Man follows her, and once Dr. Moon gets his creepy hands on her, Dr. Moon shoots Spider-Man in the hand and follows the pair into the vault, where he locks them in and steals a sample of Spider-Man's blood. After an exchange, Spider-Man frees them both and informs her to visit the police.
You know, if this is how Dr. Moon shows how much he loves you, just be glad he's not your enemy.
There must be some explanation.
Oh, there is. He's trying to kill us.
Strangely, she denies his request and tells him to basically just fuck off.
I have nothing to say to you or to the police. I don't even know who you are. Why should I trust you? Please just leave me alone.
He visits the captain the next day, who says that she denied ever even being in the building and that Spider-Man was the one trying to attack her. Meanwhile, Dr. Moon uses the blood to begin his cloning experiment. Peter visits Miss Benson and her grandfather, who give him no information other than silently confirming that they were worried of Dr. Moon's experiments, and that's why he was never awarded. Peter visits Dr. Moon's lab, where he also tells Peter to fuck off, before he successfully clones Spider-Man and discovers that he and Peter are one and the same. The evil Dr. Moon and Peter counterparts discuss their plan of attack and how to get evil Peter the Spider-Man costume. After they leave, the real Spider-Man visits the apartment, finding the real Dr. Moon still unconscious and the cloning machine still hot from when it was last used. Although ultimately finding nothing, Peter leaves. Evil Peter and Dr. Moon break into real Peter's apartment, where he discovers Peter's hidden compartment where he stores his spare costumes and a single web shooter, although no utility belt.
There isn't any utility belt.
Maybe he doesn't have a spare.
Although I'm not quite sure why it's just Nicholas and Tom's versions of the character who actually attempt to hide the costumes. Meanwhile, Toby and Andrew over here with them fully on display in their closets, but whatever. Dr. Moon also discovers that Peter will be in attendance at the costume ball, which gives him an idea. The real Peter visits Aunt May's house, who gives him a pirate costume belonging to his Uncle Max.
No, I found it in the attic. Your Uncle Max bought it for a Halloween party. I just cleaned it up a bit.
Whatever. Peter thanks her and returns to the apartment, where he subsequently makes himself look like an ass and ruins an item belonging to his dead uncle. I guess that's another thing he has in common with Tom Spider-Man.
Go. Where are your bags? Oh, right. They got blown up.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh.
He only just realizes that he already has the perfect costume and takes that instead, somehow not realizing that a whole other costume and web shooter are missing. I wonder how many he has in there. Meanwhile, at the costume ball, Peter speaks to Miss Benson, who tells him to fuck off once again, and when he leaves to go to the bathroom...
That's right, Peter. I'm you, and you're me, and this is a gun. Now, don't try any tricks, because I'm thinking with your mind, and I'm one step ahead of you all the way. So let's go outside and get a little air. Put your mask on. Move.
I'm not sure why the clone needed a gun, but whatever. They go to the roof where Dr. Moon is waiting for them. The two Spider-Men fight, with the utility belt falls off the real one, confusing them both. The clone seemingly dies, and when Peter returns to Dr. Moon and attempts to stop him, he collapses and rapidly ages before dying.
What is it?
The acceleration process. I'm dying as quickly as I was born.
A curse of the cloning process. Before he passes, he clears the real Dr. Moon's name and announces him as innocent. Captain Barbera arrives at the scene where he stops who he thinks is Spider-Man, who is ultimately revealed as just Jonah in a costume. I guess he likes doing that for some reason. Peter takes a picture of them both while laughing, clearly unfazed that he just saw a man die in his arms and his clone/brother fried by an electrical box. At the very least, the clone saga can't exist in this universe, as the acceleration would kick in on Spider-Man and he'd die. Unless he was somehow immune. Oh god. Once the second season came and went, the show was dead. Cancelled by CBS due to budgetary concerns and because they didn't want to be known as the Superhero Network for running Hulk, Wonder Woman, and Spider-Man all at once. Meanwhile, nowadays, every company is trying to be the Superhero Network. However, in 1984, 5 years after the show ended, Nicholas Hammond got a phone call. That phone call was Bill Bixby, star of The Incredible Hulk, and he had been friends with Nicholas for a while. They would often discuss issues that the production of the Hulk would run into, and theorize why Spider-Man didn't work out as well as he hoped. One day, though, he asked if he would ever return as Spider-Man, and Nick said he would if he had more control over the character, like bringing Spider-Man's humor to the big screen, and if he was in costume more often. Bill called him back and revealed he had spoken with producers, and Columbia had agreed to produce a Spider-Man Hulk crossover. Bill was going to direct, and Nick would have writing credits alongside Stan Lee and Ron Satloff. However, Universal weren't eager to lend the Hulk rights to Columbia, and eventually they came to a shared custody type deal, the same that they would have with Marvel Studios a few decades later. The film was on a roll. It had an air date of spring 1984, and the most interesting fact was that Nicholas would have worn Spider-Man's most recent costume at the time, the black suit. Raimiverse101 on Instagram created 2 edits of what the costume could have looked like, one using the lenses from the original series, and one with more comic-inspired eyes. Just as everything was going forward, Nick received another call from Bill. The project was cancelled, all because Lou Ferrigno was unavailable, making a Hercules movie in Italy. Universal weren't prepared to wait for him. Nick later theorized that Universal were actually never interested in making the film from the beginning, and this was their own way of cancelling the project, seeing as they could have easily just waited for him to return. He believes that if Columbia had the majority rights, the movie would have been made. In honor of the scrap project, here's a montage mock-up type thing of what it could have been, minus the black costume, unfortunately.
The Incredible Hulk meets Spider-Man.
I start with the Marvel Legends Japanese Spider-Man, who has the same costume as the 70s version, except for a few liberties taken. Yeah, I ordered this kit online that came with the head, web shooter, and belt. And I started on the figure by doing the boots, as the 70s costume has noticeably different boots than the actual cloth texture. I painted them a dark red and had some really messy looking lines, since that's what they look like. Then I added a gloss finish to them to make them stand out. When the parts arrived, I painted up the head. I just used Citadel paint with a shade that somewhat matched, as I really couldn't get the proper shade. But it was close enough under certain lighting. I painted the eyes silver as the mask appears to be based off the Season 1 costume, which has silver eyes and a different texture to them. I didn't record myself doing in the web lines because it was just too difficult, but I used a really fine-tipped pen for it as the lines were sculpted in, and I felt that a pen would probably get in there better than a paintbrush. I coated the belt and the web shooter in black primer before then painting on the silver and red details. The belt has like a weird little picture of his face at the front, so I had to get that in with some silver. And honestly, that was pretty easy. Afterwards, I just put on a matte finish to the rest of the figure, and I glued the belt in place as it was a bit loose, and I just wanted it to sort of show the bottom of the belt, but also not hide it. And then after that, it actually looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. At some point, I'll probably work on a version 2 since it came with 2 heads, and I did have a version 1 originally, which didn't turn out great because the 3D printed one I used was just way too big. But now I have a big bag of 70s Spider-Man heads, which is a little bit weird. He actually fits in pretty well with the rest of the cast. Well, not the cast, but the rest of the Spider-Man. Nicholas Hammond is the tallest, surprisingly, at literally like 6'1", I think he is. He's just a little bit taller than Andrew Garfield, who is pretty much known to be the tallest one. And Tom and Toby are both at the same height. So really a more accurate comparison is if I took this figure out and put in the Legends one. And that's pretty good. Now I just need to buy a second Japanese Spidey, and then I can really finish it off.